Today we're talking about NWA Invasion of WWF in 1998. Now, for those of you who remember this angle, I am deeply, deeply sorry for bringing it up. And don't worry, I will bring up more terrible angles in the future that I will also be sorry for bringing up. Now, this angle started in 1997 and was originally conceived as a way to give Jeff Jarrett a world title without, actually giving Jeff Jarrett a WWE title when he returned to WWF from WCW. Now, as we've talked about Jeff Jarrett before, they always wanted to push him, but they never quite wanted to push him. So Jim Cornette was put in charge of getting the NWA titles. And the angle started with Jim Cornette coming on to WWE TV and doing worked shoots, blasting both WWF and WCW. WWF as being pretty much car crash TV and not having wrestling on TV, and WCW as being a bunch of old guys wrestling, which WCW was. And so he vowed to bring legitimacy back to the WWF. And he did this in early January 1998 when he came on TV with two people. Now you're thinking these two people are going to be great, right? You're thinking they're going to be great two people. No, they're two people from NWA's governing body. And they have the NWA North American Championship. Now you're wondering, why don't they have the NWA World title? Because they couldn't, Jim Cornette couldn't get the NWA World title on such short notice because of previous commitments on the world title. So he got the North American Championship, and they put a match together between Barry Windham and Jeff Jarrett, which Jeff Jarrett won thanks to Jim Cornette's interference, and starting to set up the NWA stable. Next, they brought in the NWA Tag Team Championship and put it on the Rock and Roll Express. Now, you might be thinking, this is 1998. The Rock and Roll Express's heyday was the 1980s. How old do these guys look? And the answer is pretty damn old. But still, they have the NWA World Tag Team Championships, and they're defending it on a very regular basis. And Jim Cornette is helping them win, sitting up further up the NWA stable. Now, the NWA stable continues to sit up when Blackjack Barry Windham turns on his partner, Blackjack Bradshaw, who is also Justin Hawk Bradshaw, who also later became just Bradshaw. And Barry Windham joins the NWA stable, even though Jeff Jarrett screwed him out of the North American Championship less than a month earlier. Which doesn't make sense, but this was Vince Russo's writing. So the NWA stable is set up. Now, the Rock and Roll Express gets into a feud with the Headbangers. And after many weeks of WWF-style screwy endings, they have a NWA-style screw ending when they bring in NWA official Tommy Young to officiate the match, where Thresher throws one of them over the top rope, and so he disqualifies the Headbangers, and the Rock and Roll Express keep the title. Because in the NWA, they have that old rule, you can't throw somebody over the top rope or go over the top rope. But the very next week, the Headbangers win, thanks to Jim Cornette bashing Thrasher with his tennis racket, and Thrasher falling on one of them and getting the 3 count. Now you may be wondering what's happening with Jeff Jarrett. Well, Jeff Jarrett sees the writing on the wall that this is one of the stupidest things he's ever been involved in. And as you know, Jeff Jarrett's been involved in a lot of stupid things. And he leaves the NWA stable, giving the North American title to Barry Windham, who then gets stripped of it less than 24 hours later. And Jeff Jarrett once again goes back to being a country singer. So then they create the New Midnight Express. And I am not kidding you, the New Midnight Express, consisting of, hopefully I get these nicknames right, Bombastic Bob Holly and Bodacious Bart Gunn. Now, both of these guys at the time were jobbers. They were jobbers. And Bob Holly, as we know, would go on to have a solid singles career as Hardcore Holly. And Bart Gunn, we know, would go on to win the Brawl for All and then drop off the face of the earth after losing to a guy whose name I can't remember at WrestleMania 15 that I probably should know. Big fat guy. Though that winning the Brawl for All could have worked for his career, honestly, but they just screwed up. They just screwed it up. But anyways, the New Midnight Express, managed by Jim Cornette. And they managed to get the titles back from the Headbangers. They also wrestled the Rock and Roll Express on a pay-per-view, which was an unadvertised match, which no one cared about. They also bring in the NWA World Champion, Dan Severn, who is one of the greatest fighters in history. He won numerous MMA championships, UFC championships. I mean, I've met the guy. He is big, and he sells mustaches. If you ever go to a show where you can get his autograph, it's really cool. And he'd come out with the NWA Championship around his waist, and Jim Cornette managing him, holding his other numerous championships. But quickly that faded, and Dan Severn went on to go to a singles run in WWE. The New Midnight Express would go on to lose the titles to the Outlaws, and then face each other in the first round of the Brawl for All, which we know Bart Gunn won. And Jim Cornette then quit as their manager, saying that they would never work as a tag team again. Dan Severn would have a mixed career in WWE. He'd have some success, but not as much as he should have. But he'd go back to MMA and have a lot of success still. Jim Cornette would later get the hell away from Vince Russo and go and found OVW. Go and help found OVW. The Rock and Roll Express would eventually retire because they were old by this point. And Jeff Jarrett would go on to have a career that some people would say is good. Some people are saying, well, he owned the company. So that's why he was world champion so many times. So that's pretty much how the NWA Invasion went. Join me next week where we will talk about Triple H losing to Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 12 in 11 seconds.